Hi, my name is Adrian Wolfberg. I want to talk about the rationale for the genres in the Engaged Management Review. The first thing I want to discuss is what a practitioner scholar is. That's what I am. I'm a practitioner who's graduated from the Case Western program. So there's some important distinctions between someone like me, and there's a lot of you around the world who have gone through such programs. The first is that as a practitioner, we have a fundamentally different sense of what's important in the world from a scholar, for example. Those things that are important are found in the practice that we work. We identify the particular problems that we face. In a traditional, in a scholar, what's important are the development of theories and how theory is developed ultimately for the purpose of creating new knowledge that's supporting or creating new theories. So I call that the ontological difference between a scholar-practitioner, practitioner-scholar, and the scholar. There's also this other fundamental difference. It's kind of how we know. So the scholar builds on using methods to create theories or test theories. The practitioner lives in their world. The methods that they use are varied, quite different than how a scholar generates knowledge. For the scholar-practitioner, practitioner-scholar, we've gone through this journey where we've lived in the world of practice for 10, 20, 30 years. We get trained in collaboration with scholars in the ways of scholarly knowledge. So there's this key collaboration aspect, fusing scholar and practitioner identities. And at the end of the day, coming out of these programs, we have this very interesting fusion in how we know that's unique. So there are these two key areas of uniqueness that set aside this community of scholar practitioners from either scholars in the traditional sense or practitioners who have not had academic training. So there is therefore this inherent tension that a scholar-practitioner has, practitioner-scholar has, that we live in multiple worlds. We inherently have become boundary spanners. 1 foot in one world and 1 foot in another world, and there are these different worlds. So there's the world of rigor, which the world of science demands. There's also the world of relevance, which practice demands. Well, we have to span both of those. 1 foot in rigor and 1 foot in relevance. That's just the nature of how we've come to be, our way of knowing. There's also another very different set of worlds. We come from a world of action. We'll go back into a world of action. That's our primary bias. But through the process of becoming scholar practitioners, we've also become sensitized to the importance of how knowledge is created and the value of evidence-based knowledge. So we span those two worlds, the world of action and the world of knowledge. But there's another world that we span also. In the world of the scholarly world, theory is paramount in terms of the journey that begins and ultimately the end of the scientific journey. For the practitioner, intense awareness, an accurate awareness of the situational context in which problems of practice exist are paramount to solving problems, to understanding what the challenge is and how to arrive at a solution that will benefit the practice. So we sit in a world of theory, and we also sit in this world of situational context. So we span at least three kind of dimensions between the scholar and the practitioner worlds. So the challenge then is, as a community, so as graduates of these programs that take practitioners, train them in scholarly ways, and get doctorate degrees, and this is a relatively young community. Globally speaking, this may just be occurring over the last 30 years, and over the last 10 years, more programs have come into existence, flourishing this idea. So there's this challenge of reinforcing this uniqueness of these boundary-spanning professionals crossing these different worlds, so this is preserved and strengthened. There's this idea of professionalizing this way of being and this way of knowing. So how do you do that? How do you take this kind of new form of being and knowing and ensure that it survives and prospers, especially when the options that are available today have traditionally been or are in either the world of scholarship or in the world of the practitioner. And so as this unique scholar-practitioner role, we all have those two options, which requires transforming what we are into either of these dissemination outlets, either the scholarly academic journals or the pure practitioner trade journal. And I think that's a fine set of options in the short term. But we're looking at Engaged Management Review, EMR, as a pathway to ensure that the future of this community survives. And so the trick then is how to create a genre that preserves our uniqueness, surrounded by these two, so to speak, alien paradigms of the scholarly versus the trade magazine approach. So the guidelines that we use to come up with a design for EMR was founded on this boundary-spanning role that we play across these three dimensions that I talked about: rigor, relevance, action, knowledge, and theory and situational context. And so the driving factor behind the design was to to manifest this boundary spanning behavior in the outlet itself in EMR. So this was meant, this is obviously very new. This is, very different than either of the two outlets, the academic, the scholarly versus the practitioner. But the rationale was to reinforce and develop this unique type of practitioner scholarship. And this boundary spanning role is the basis for that. And so the way that we've created EMR to preserve this boundary spanning role and to be a repository to build on was to take three different kinds of ways of thinking and doing research. Talking about the empirical research that's evidence-based. That would be one area. Another area is talking about how your research that you've done has been incorporated into your practice after you've graduated. And last, an opportunity to write about, in a reflective basis, what we're doing, which all three are keys to how you professionalize a community. But I want to talk first about the empirical paper. The empirical paper is the expression of where the boundary spanning occurs directly. So this is where we intersect a framing of a research problem by the issue or concern in practice and its ultimate output, which is, here are the results of the research that can be applicable to solve your practice problem. So we take that approach and we intersect it conceptually with the scholarly approach based on, here's what we know about this issue, this phenomena. Here's what we don't know. And then at the output of that is a contribution to theory. Where they intersect is methods that are used. These both perspectives use some sort of scientific method, a qualitative, quantitative, or a combination thereof. So the paper itself has components, components that reflect both of these paths, the practitioner path and the scholarly path. Each requires its own voice. The practitioner voice is intuitive, plain language, easy to understand, directly understandable, contextually relevant. The scholarly language, abstract, precise, appropriate for theory development and application, appropriate for kind of a rigorous idea of knowledge. Both paths, the practitioner, scholar, involve the validity of the knowledge that's being reported, and in different ways. On the scholarly side, the more typical research method way. On the practitioner side, how relevant it is to the practitioner that the research can be. So there's this back and forth that's intentionally incorporated into EMR to reinforce this unique boundary spanning behavior and to create this unique type of knowledge. The translation paper is intended to be a way to provide the community an idea of how useful or difficult or not real-world application of your research is in the world of practice. And then we have essays to help talk about various kind of theoretical discussions about the nature of what we're doing, an opportunity to fine-tune issues that come up, methodological issues, topics that should be a focus, kind of a self-reflective mechanism to help further professionalize the community.